how do we get to a place where Adam Schiff, who is demonstrably dishonest and reckless, almost demented in the way he behaves, is playing a significant role in U.S. foreign policy? It's scary. Pretty much everything they have told us about this war since the very beginning has been a lie. And again, most people don't know because our news is so controlled by the U.S. government, one of the things we've learned from the Twitter files. But very quickly, let's run through some of the things they've told us. They told us that sanctions were going to cripple the Russian economy. Joe Biden said that in a speech to the country. Did it? Well, this summer, the Russian ruble hit its strongest level in 7 years. And just a few months ago, Russia posted a massive trade surplus. Russian propaganda? No, economic facts. Our policy isn't working. In fact, it's counterproductive. From January to September of this year, Russia's trade surplus was $120 billion higher than it was in the same period last year. It's double Russia's previous record set in 2008. That's what our sanctions have done. Remember when we were told that Putin would be crippled by sanctions? Liars. Rebel News reporter called Jeremy Lafredo just went to Moscow to see what is happening there. Turns out they're doing okay. What we're doing isn't hurting them, only us. Grocery stores in Moscow are not empty. They're not running out of food. And their food prices aren't bad either. Watch this.
Upon walking in, I was surprised. It seemed like not only a normal grocery store, but it was absolutely full of food. Barilla pasta, which you can get at any grocery store in the States, was stacked so tall that I would need a ladder to reach the linguine. But I remained skeptical because surely the New York Times and the Washington Post wouldn't be lying. How expensive is everything? Russian stores could have food, but with inflation and shortages, items could be so expensive that no one can afford it. First I went to the milk aisle. Kefir, 1%, 2%, 3%, and even 4% milk, yogurts, and fake dairy alternatives. They had a lot of options. I got a liter of regular milk. It was 89 rubles, or $1.41. Then I made my way to the meat section. They had beef, chicken, turkey, pork, and even rabbit. I settled for a pound of ground beef, which was 175 rubles, or $2.78. The total for milk, eggs, beef, bread, and mushrooms was 499 rubles, or $7.92. Surprisingly, it seems the mainstream media is not being entirely truthful in regards to the effects sanctions are having on the prices of essential goods in Russia.
So there's no question that we will be accused of Russian propaganda for playing that clip. Not that we care. But it gives us the chance to make a very obvious point. That's news. Those are facts. We are bringing you information. You do with it what you will. That's not propaganda. Propaganda is when you withhold information from the population in order to affect a policy they don't actually support. That's what North Korea does. That's what the Soviet Union did. And that's what we're doing here. And that's why we're grateful that Jeremy Lafredo actually went to find out what was happening. He's with Rebel News. He joins us tonight. Jeremy, thanks so much for coming on. I'm certain you will be attacked as a tool of Putin, but let's ignore that and get to what you saw there. It looked from the grocery store that sanctions are not hurting Moscow too badly.
Yeah, I was on my way to Russia, and I saw the New York Times said that there's Soviet-era shortages. The Washington Post said something along the lines of that there's essential goods scarcity. Foreign policy, they put out a report that said that the economy in Russia is in a black hole that's, of proportion that's never been seen before. And so, I was a little nervous going there. And, I went to rural areas outside of Moscow, and I went to grocery stores like you just saw. And, things were cheap, and, they had more things than, the Whole Foods here in New York City. And, what is the goal? What is the goal of these sanctions? The goal is obviously to cause unrest, shortages, make people unhappy with the government. Hopefully people will take to the streets. And at the end of the day, we want regime change in Russia. Right. We want a different government. But as you can tell, that's not happening. No. I spoke to hundreds of people in Russia, and they fit into about 3 different categories of how they feel about the sanctions. The first category of people, they, consider themselves Russian patriots, and they don't care if they can't use Netflix. They don't care if Spotify's gone. They don't care if they can't send money overseas. They believe in the cause, and they support their government. And then another group of people, maybe you would consider them, liberals. We have them everywhere, and they oppose the sanctions only because they can't go on vacations. They can't watch Netflix. And they oppose the war because they oppose the sanctions. They just want to live how they normally live, which is a relatively comfortable lifestyle. And then the other group of people, they don't even notice anything's happening. Maybe they just buy food at the store, the gas is cheap, they drive around. They're not affected at all by these sanctions.
Right. Well, the point undergirding all of this is we're affected by the sanctions, and so is Western Europe, and they're crushing our economies. So let me just ask you very quickly, just for the record, were you accompanied by a Putin government minder? Was your reporting dictated or driven or steered by anyone from the Putin government?
No one from the government, any government, was with me. I was by myself, walking around documenting what I was seeing.
And we're grateful that you did, because more information, the free flow of information, is essential in a democracy. Jeremy Lafredo, thank you so much.